I want to talk for a few minutes today, though, about the bill that's on the floor, the amendment, in fact, to the General System of Trade Preferences bill. That amendment is trade adjustment assistance. Frankly, Madam President, it's not a bill that I would have drafted on my own, but my guess is neither would the two people that negotiated the bill. This is a compromise between Chairman Camp in the Senate and the gentleman from Montana here. It's a compromise that reflects exactly that. It's not what either one of them may have come up with, certainly not what I would have come up with, but based on the President's determination, it's essential to move on to the 3 trade agreements that have been waiting to be voted on for 3 years now. And I intend to vote for this. I'm looking carefully at the amendments, and I'm supportive of the 2 amendments we'll vote on today, but if they would disrupt the balance of this agreement that's been made, I'm going to look very carefully at that as these votes are cast. Certainly, I'd like for this president and all of his successors to have trade promotion authority. Like we've seen the difficulty of the president being able to negotiate a treaty as an agreement, a trade agreement that would come to the Senate, that could be amended by the Senate, that takes 2/3 of the Senate to approve. Those days are over. And before trade promotion authority, we had essentially gotten out of the treaty agreement on trade, because who wants to make that kind of agreement? Who wants to get into a room and negotiate a trade agreement only to see the thing that maybe they thought was the biggest thing that they had given up, or the biggest thing that they had gotten, taken out of the agreement before the Senate votes on it? And so this up or down, yes or no, majority in the Senate and majority in the House trade promotion authorities, very important. I wish we had an agreement that this president wanted right now, and that the next president, whoever that is and whenever that is, would have the ability to continue. Because since we ran out of the trade promotion authority law, we haven't had any agreements negotiated. And in fact, the 3 that we have negotiated now, I'm going to talk about in a minute, but they've been available for 3 years. And I am eager for the president to send them up. And the president says that this TAA issue, this trade adjustment assistance issue, has to be understood to be completed, and will be completed, or at least he has to be assured that it'll be completed before we get those 3 agreements. It would be fine with me if we could adjust this some. I'd like to see my good friend from Oregon who's on the floor, Mr. Wyden, his bill that I've co-sponsored on transshipment, where many of us in this body have problems in our state. I've got 2 major problems that I could talk about for a long time, but I won't today, where the proper authority has looked at what's happening, and they said, no, you've got unfair trade practices, and so there's a penalty on the country that is using those unfair practices to compete. But then what that country does is they just start labeling the product as if it were from somewhere else. And they may ship the product through that other country and get it labeled there, and they may just short-circuit that and put the label on it in their own country and just say it's made somewhere else. So when it comes in here, suddenly it doesn't have that penalty. Whether that's relabeling or I think, as my good friend from Oregon calls it, merchandise laundering, where you just make the merchandise appear to be something that it's not, so you no longer pay the penalty. I'd love to see that on a bill here in the near. The other senator from Oregon and I have a bill on affordable footwear that has trade impact that I'd love to see on a bill. And this is a bill that potentially might have jurisdiction to go on. But that's not the agreement that's been made between the House and the Senate. And I'm going to be supporting that agreement and not doing anything that makes it impossible for us to get these 3 trade agreements. And I am absolutely banking on the commitment by the President of the United States that if this happens, the 3 trade agreements come to the Congress. And when they come to the Congress, I believe they pass the House and Senate, and they create great opportunity for American workers to send their products to other countries. You know, one of these agreements that's been there for a long time is the agreement with Colombia. And Colombia already is able to ship its products in here without tariff under something that routinely passes the Congress called the Andean Preferences Act. So this is not about whatever labor conditions there are in Colombia. Their products already come here. This is about whether U.S. workers are going to have every possible advantage in Colombia. This is about whether Caterpillars made in the United States or John Deere tractors or moving equipment made in the United States have the same advantage in Colombia that the same piece of equipment made in Canada has. Right now, they don't have that advantage. We need to see that they do. Or in Korea, where the European Union negotiated a trade agreement long after we negotiated this agreement, but it went into effect the 1st of July, and the year-to-year comparison, July over July, is I think 38% bigger this July than it was last July, and the only difference in this July and last July is the trade agreement. And these are all three countries that all of their trading history, all of their buying history, Panama being the third of the three, would be that given the choice of an American product to buy or a product from any other country but their own, they would give preference to the American product. But we're giving away that market advantage by not creating this opportunity for American workers and American companies, big and small. Agriculture is a huge beneficiary of these agreements. And lots of agriculture, lots of grain crop agriculture, lots of meat crop agriculture, whether it's chickens or poultry of all kinds or pork or beef, is very dependent on American family farmers who will see a great opportunity in each of these countries given the opportunity to get their product here under these agreements. And so, Madam President, I'm just hoping that my colleagues, enough of my colleagues and I, are able to get this general system of preferences bill as amended with TAA done so that we can get on to the job-creating work of these three trade bills. These are opportunities to create more private sector American jobs. Over and over again, almost every member of the Senate says that should be our #1 priority. The President says that's his #1 priority. This work combined, as we get to the trade agreements, lets us do the easiest part of job creation in our #1 priority, which is let American workers compete in places where the consumer wants to buy American products, eliminate those barriers, and move forward with these agreements and the bill on the floor today.